Hey, are you up for a little true or false action? Little true or false action. Here at our regional sites and in the atrium, and so you might want to buddy up with someone, or you might want to just quietly call out. But what comes to mind when I ask you these questions? True or false? True or false? We are living right now in the most desperately evil era in all of history. True or false? It's false. False by a long shot. Listen to what the Bible says about an era that preceded this. Genesis 6. The Lord saw the great wickedness across the earth, and that every inclination of mankind's heart was only evil continually. Did you see that? Everyone was only evil continually. Now humor me for just a second. Think a nice thought about your mother. Okay, no nasty thoughts right now. Just all nice thoughts about your mother. You got it? That's proof that you are not evil continually. You thought a nice thought. So you and I are evil occasionally. But back in that day, the people were only evil, always evil continually. But that bothered God so much, the ubiquitousness of evil, the depth of it. It grieved God so deeply that God basically decided to start over with the human experiment by destroying everything and everybody with a great flood. Do you remember this? Maybe from your Sunday school days or from some bad Hollywood movies? Another true or false, God decided to save one guy named Noah from the total destruction of the flood. True or false? Oh, you're disappointing me. False. God decided to save 8 people. Noah and his wife, Noah's 3 sons, and their wives. So 8 in total. But the reason the other 7 got a boat ride was because the text says Noah was a righteous person, blameless in his ways, and he walked with God. Did you catch those words? Righteous, blameless, and he walked with God. True or false? Your family and friends frequently describe you that way. Yeah. Continuing. True or false? Noah spent 120 years building the ark. True or false? You're losing confidence, aren't you? The actual answer, we don't know for sure. He was thought to be 480 years old when God told him to build it, and he was 600 years old when he and the family entered the ark. But the text does not say that he worked 40-hour weeks for 120 years with 3 weeks paid vacation every year. I mean, maybe he knocked it out in 50 or 60 years and worked on his golf game until it started to rain. We don't know. But my point is, the text is not completely clear about this. And what should we do when a text from the Bible is not totally clear about something? A or B? A, make stuff up. B, admit the text is not totally clear and refuse to speculate. A or B? Oh, thank you. In a few moments, you're going to see how dangerous it can be to speculate about a text that's not totally clear, but we can't get ahead of ourselves. So, next true and false question. We know the exact dimensions of the ark. True or false? Half true. Half true. God specified the exact dimensions of the ark in what's known as cubits. But the length of a cubit varied from culture to culture because it was actually based on the measurement of a man's arm from his elbow to his fingertips. So apparently the Egyptians' men's arms on average were 20.6 inches from here to there, but the average of the Hebrew arms averaged more like 17.5 inches. So the ark might have been as long as 510 feet, and it might have been as short as 480 feet, depending on which cubit from which culture is being used in the math. This is like the History Channel you're listening to right now, isn't it? Where do you get stuff like this, okay? True or false? Noah and his family were ridiculed relentlessly as they built the ark because there was no water in sight and it took them so long to build. True or false? Pretty confident there, weren't you? When I was a kid growing up, my Sunday school teachers stressed that Noah was remembered and revered because he stayed faithful to his ark-building calling despite decades of mocking and withering criticism, nonstop, 120 years of it. And I remember being inspired by his courage in spite of all that ridicule. I would come out of Sunday school class on Sunday and hope someone would mock me for my faith on Monday at school, because I was going to keep doing what God wanted me to do if I got taunted, spit at, or beaten within an inch of my life, because I was going to be as resolute as Noah. He was my hero for enduring criticism. Just one thing. There's not a single mention of anybody mocking or ridiculing Noah. No mention of it whatsoever in the text, not even a whiff. Now, it's possible that somebody did. Maybe it's possible some of his neighbors thought he had a screw loose, but the text never says that. So what do we do when the actual text of the Bible doesn't support our strong opinion about what might have happened? Do we make stuff up? No. Do we speculate? No. Okay? We choke back our opinions and we say the text didn't say it, or it's not clear. But we have to let the text be the text. Okay, here's an easy one. True or false? Noah nearly had a heart attack trying to round up all the animals that needed to get on the ark. True or false? Yeah. It's tough to herd cats, you know the expression goes. How do you herd snakes and hippos and bald eagles and this kind of stuff? Look at Genesis 7, verses 7 and 8. Then Noah and his family entered the ark, and pairs of animals, birds and creatures of every kind, came. They came to Noah, and they entered the ark. According to the text, once Noah and his family walked up the gangway, God directed an orderly procession of thousands of animals until every last one of them was aboard. Is that how you read the text? I'll admit, it takes some faith to believe that they all just cooperated and they came when God called. I had a dog for 14 years. He never came once when I called him. And all these animals are cooperating. It's a miracle. Here's another easy one. Noah got into a terrible fight with his wife about whose job it was to close the door of the ark. True or false? True or false? False, that's right. But I can hear Noah saying, hey, honey, I spent 120 years building this thing. The least thing you could do is close the door. Dear, But it doesn't say any of that in the text. Genesis 7:16 simply says the Lord shut him in. The Lord closed the door. We don't know how tall it was, how wide it was, but we know that God closed it, and it doesn't seem like anyone thought about it. We shouldn't make that stuff up. Okay, now, 3 rapid fire true and false. Gear up. 3, back to back to back. Noah and his family sat in the ark for a full week before it started to rain. True or false? It rained straight for 40 days and 40 nights. True or false? All totaled, Noah and the crew were on the ark for 378 days. True or false? Those were all true. Back to back to back. All true. And it's all right there in the text if you want to read it. Now, as I'm reading you right now, I think you're getting a little sick of this true and false nonsense. And you wish I would just preach for a while so you can cool off your brain and daydream and send some text like you usually do when I preach. So I agree. I'll just preach for a while, revert to your normal behaviors, okay? So when the ark is finally resting on dry ground, and when the animals are all unloaded, guess what Noah does first thing? After all he's been through, guess what he does first thing? Actually, we don't have to guess. The text tells us, Genesis 8:20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and he took some of the animals and the birds and sacrificed burnt offerings on it. First thing. This is beautiful to me. He doesn't get out and kiss the ground and run around and all that. First thing, he builds a sacrifice to God. God notices what we do first thing. Remember, he says whenever we get a paycheck, we should take the first 10th of our earnings and offer it back to him. It's a first thing. It's a first sacrifice. We should talk to him first thing in the morning. Good morning, God. First thing, first conversation I want to have is with you, God. We should obey him first. Stand up for him first. First things matter. And so right there it says, first thing he does is he gives God a burnt offering sacrifice. Now, I kind of had an odd idea here that I probably shouldn't have included in my notes. But from the perspective of these birds and animals that get sacrificed, can you imagine what they're thinking? Hey, we got chosen to be spared from the destruction of the flood. We were supernaturally orchestrated by God to board the ark 2 by 2. We survived 378 days on this stinking ship. We finally get off the ground, bam, we're burned to death. Just from their perspective. I'll leave that out next hour. Back to the text, Genesis 8. God smelled the pleasing aroma of Noah's sacrifice and said in his heart, never again will I curse the ground because of humans. Even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood, he still kind of remembers how bad that group got. Never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. Then look at verse 13. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and that rainbow will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth, that I'll never destroy the earth again. Look at some rainbows here. You've seen them. They take your breath away. And you should remember every time you see a rainbow, God's covenant saying, I'll be patient. I'll never destroy the world again until the end comes. Okay? Wouldn't this be a beautiful place for me to end this sermon? Some of you are thinking, any time is a beautiful time for you to end any sermon. But there's one tiny little matter. The text mentions one more incident in the life of Noah. And between you and me, I wish it didn't. I wish we could just end now, sing a rainbow song, and go out. I wish Noah's story ended with just a rainbow and an orchestra and so. But the text describes something else that happened to Noah, and I have to explain this to you for several different reasons that will become evident. Genesis 9, 20 and following. Noah, this is after he got off the ark, and so a man of the soil proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk, and he lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. Shem and Japheth, the two brothers, took a garment and laid it across their shoulders, and they walked in backwards, and they covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. You got this? Is this clear? Please don't make me read that again. Okay? So when Noah awoke from his wine and he found out what his youngest son had done, the text says, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." He also said, "Praise to the Lord, the God of Shem," so another son. "May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory." That's another son. "May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." Final little verse here. After the flood, Noah lived 350 more years. Noah lived a total of 950 years, and then he died. Probably bankrupted the Social Security system, wouldn't you think? Now, if you're scratching your head and wondering what in the world went on inside Noah's tent, and if you're scratching your head saying, what is this curse thing all about? Well, you're in pretty good company. Even seasoned Old Testament scholars struggle with this text. But we can agree on a couple of things. And the first is very important. Noah is the one pronouncing the curse, not God. Remember Genesis 9? Read carefully. When Noah awoke from his wine, found out what his youngest son had done to him, Noah's the one that says, "Cursed be Canaan." So God isn't cursing anybody here. Noah, a private citizen, is doing the cursing. Never forget that. But from there, this passage is what we in the business call a hairball. I mean, more technically, it's called a hapax. It's a one-off, inherently confounding and confusing biblical text. How confusing? Just watch. Genesis 5:32 gives us the birth order of Noah's 3 sons. Just watch this carefully now and remember it. Oldest one, the firstborn, is Shem. Secondborn is Ham. The third, the youngest, is Japheth. But the text says, when Noah found out what his youngest son had done to him, wait, who was actually his youngest son? Japheth. And he and Shem were the good guys in this story. They came in with the blanket and covered their dad's nakedness. Ham is the bad guy. Now, to make matters even worse, when Noah pronounced his actual curse for what Ham had done, he doesn't curse Ham. He curses Ham's youngest son, Canaan. What in the world? Let's read it again. When Noah awoke from his wine, found out what his youngest son had done, he said, "Cursed be Canaan." What does Canaan even have to do with anything? Huh? So did Noah get his curse wrong? Was he still intoxicated? Maybe he was aiming for Ham, and in his inebriated state, the word Canaan came out of his mouth. Or did Canaan do something inside or outside the tent that we know nothing about? Further, the curse itself is confusing. It simply says, we'll read it again, about Canaan, the lowest of the slaves he will be to his brothers. Whose brothers? His brothers, his father's brothers? For how long? What's the expiration date on the servitude curse? Not a lot of clarity here, wouldn't you agree? Well, what should we do with a text like this? Make stuff up? Speculate? Should we maybe just all humbly admit that we're not going to figure all this out on our own, so maybe we should just chill out about it, ask God about it on the other side? He'll probably know, right? But did you know that over the centuries, some very twisted Bible scholars have used this very text, the one we're all confused about? Over the centuries, some twisted Bible scholars have used this very text to justify unspeakable forms of human oppression. How many of you have ever heard of this thing called the curse of Ham? Would you raise your hand? Yeah, okay. I'd heard about it. When you get home, do me a favor. Go to your laptop and just type the words, go to Google and then just type the curse of Ham. Spend an hour reading about this curse of Ham thing. Whole philosophies, whole systems of thought have been built on this confusing text. I'm going to cite 3 of these philosophies or systems of thought. The first is the idea that when Noah cursed Ham, actually Ham's son Canaan, the minute he was doing that cursing, Ham's skin turned black. Right then and there. He became a black man. And then all of his descendants through Canaan were black skin. And so when Noah said to Ham's son Canaan that he would become the lowest of the slaves to his brothers, that what God was really doing, these scholars say, was predicting that later on in history there would be a whole race of black people destined to be slaves to white people. All because of Noah's curse. So guess what white pastors preached from their pulpits for several hundred years during the dark days of legal slave trading here and in Europe? White preachers preaching from their pulpits during that time in history preached that buying and selling black-skinned people was biblically justifiable because of the curse of Ham back in Genesis 9. And I read that and studied that for hours this past week, and it made my blood boil. I just kept thinking, how could they? How could they? The text doesn't suggest that. There's nothing about race. There's nothing about skin color changing. And yet a whole philosophy, a whole system that perpetuated whites selling blacks like farm animals is biblically justified from the text we're just confused about. Whew. What should we do when we don't understand a text? Make stuff up. Speculate. Okay, here's another one. Some twisted Bible scholars said that the curse of Ham fell on his son Canaan, whose descendants settled in what we think of as the Holy Land. But these descendants became the Palestinians. And because they are a cursed people, because they come from the lineage of Ham and Canaan, these Palestinians, because they are a cursed people, they can be oppressed and have their land seized and occupied by whomever, all justified biblically because of the curse in Genesis 9. Are you kidding me? And this is out there, gang. And people twist the Bible this way. And a whole people group gets oppressed, and they're like, does the Bible really say this stuff? Let me give you just one more. Some Bible scholars speculated, fasten your seatbelts on this one. Some Bible scholars speculate that Ham's son Canaan snuck into the tent while Noah was drunk and performed a homosexual act on him. So when Noah woke up, he cursed